gossip. The name Harishchandra becomes synonymous with steadfastness and adherence to truth at any cost. Such fanaticism always invites a challenge. It is human nature to protest against too much perfection, at least a debating point one likes to convert it. The human mind feels at home only when it can detect slight imperfections. It was in such a mood that the two saints came to talk about Harishchandra in an upper world, while that king, unaware of being subject of a debate, was happily ruling his country down below in a terrestrial plane. The argument rose between the greatest of the sages, Vasishtha, and his perpetual rival, closely following on his heels, Vishwamitra. Vasishtha had just arrived at Indralok, from a visit to Ayodhya, Harishchandra's capital. While all celestial beings lounged around on their global golden seats, Vasishtha was welcomed and asked where he had come from. Vasishtha replies, I was in Ayodhya attending the Rajasuri sacrifice of Harishchandra. In gifts in the versatility of the sacrificial offerings and the divinity that he manages to invoke with his devotions and sacrifices.
Sacrifice होता ये नहीं होता था कि बलि
ये तो पता नहीं
पता क्लियर नहीं है sacrifice होता है जैसे हमने अपना कपड़ा दिया भी sacrifice है
खैर in the kingly showering of gifts on gifts and the visitors, and in every way few have I ever met in any of the worlds above or below to equal Harishchandra. A clicking of tongues and an exclamation of utmost deprecation was heard at this moment and arrested everybody's attention. The exclamation proceeded from where Vishwamitra was seated. Everybody turned to him. He quietly said, You found it overwhelming, I suppose. You must be easy to please. विश्वामित्र ने कहा अरे तुम्हें तो बहुत ही अच्छा लगा तुम तो बहुत आसान हो प्लीज करने के लिए वशिष्ठ से कहा
तुम तो बहुत आसान हो
खुश करने के लिए Vasishtha looked at him and said without acidity, anyone would agree with me. Anyone who is aware of the qualities of Harishchandra. Harishchandra को जिसकी qualities पता है वो पता होगा कि भैया मैं सही कह रहा हूँ. The assembly held its breath and waited for any clash between these two minds. Always produced interesting results. तो जब भी वशिष्ठ और विश्वामित्र में झगड़ा हुआ मजा आता था लोगों को सब लोग बैठ के चुपचाप देख रहे थे क्या हो रहा है. Vishwamitra pursued the subject further and pray what are those qualities. तो विश्वामित्र ने कहा अच्छा बताइए जरा qualities क्या क्या है what are the qualities. Should you ask? Yes, said Vishwamitra, because I like to be enlightened. विश्वामित्र हाँ मैं को जानने की बड़ी प्रबल इच्छा है बताइए क्या है. Vasishtha knew that Vishwamitra was spoiling for a fight, yet answered with a casual air. If there is one sentient being who has utterly consecrated his existence to truth, it is Harishchandra. एक आदमी जिसने की सच्चाई पे अपनी जिंदगी दिला दी है वो है हरिश्चंद्र. एक ही आदमी है. It is a fact known in all the worlds and I think it needs no repetition. और वशिष्ठ ने कहा देखो पूरी दुनिया को मालूम है कुछ किसी को रिपीट नहीं करना. What is the meaning of truth? Is there none else in all creation who cares for the truth? Play explain. तो विश्वामित्र बोले अरे सच्चाई का क्या मतलब है कोई और को सच्चाई से मतलब नहीं है क्या बात कह रहे हैं आप. In thought, word and deed, he is the most truthful man. He will keep his word whatever may happen. ठीक है ना. Oh, laughed Vishwamitra. Are you aware that this Harishchandra remained without issue until he played to Varun and performed sacrifices to please that God to give him a son? बोला आपको पता है ये विश्वामित्र का बेबी नहीं हो रहा था. उसने वरुण भगवान की पूजा की और उनसे कहा कि भैया मुझे एक बेबी चाहिए. But when the time came, you know what he did? जब समय आया तो उसने पता क्या किया? He became too fond of his son and did not have the heart to fulfill his vow. ठीक है ना. मतलब
क्या हुआ जो
मतलब मैं वरुण देवता को दूंगा. ठीक है ना. इन्होंने कहा कि ठीक है अगर मेरा लड़का हुआ तो मैं वरुण देवता को दूंगा. तो जब बेबी हुआ लड़का हुआ तो इन्होंने इतना प्यार हुआ कि उन्होंने वरुण देवता को नहीं दिया. And so that son himself went round to find an acceptable substitute. They finally got hold of a poor boy who would have been surrendered to Varuna had I not rescued the child from a sacrifice. ये वही विश्वामित्र हैं जिन्होंने उस लड़के को नरबली से बचाया था. पर ये अब ये उसकी बात करें हरिश्चंद्र की कि उसके पूर्वज की. Could not be this Harishchandra. He is not the one to go back on his word. Should we not put it to test? ये किसी और राजा की बात थी, है ना? तो बोला कि अब टेस्ट के लिए किया जाए. विश्वामित्र ने कहा एक बार टेस्ट कर लिया जाए. Asked Vishwamitra. And all the gods and assembled sages murmured in an enthusiastic accent. A promising show was coming off in their view. तो सारे संतों ने कहा अरे हाँ बिल्कुल टेस्ट तो पक्का किया जाए, मजा आने वाला है. Vishwamitra swore.
एक तुम देखो.
I will. Vishwamitra swore. I will prove that he will back out of one of his promises. Otherwise, I will surrender all the merits as so far required. विश्वामित्र ने कहा गारंटी ले लो ये बंदा एक प्रॉमिस से तो निकलेगा, नहीं तो मैं तो अपने सारे जो भी मेरे पास मेरिट्स हैं उनमें से एक में से निकल जाऊंगा.
राजा जी ने सेक्रीफाइस में कहा था वो कोई और से.
हाँ. And so Vishwamitra set about his task with zest and tried in various ways to provoke a conflict between himself and Harishchandra. Now the scene of action shifted to Ayodhya, which was being ruled by Harishchandra in an exemplary manner. अब हरिश्चंद्र जो थे बढ़िया राजा थे, तो अयोध्या आप चलते हैं, है ना? With the peasants, artisans, traders and learned men of the city happy, contented and loyal. और ऐसा शहर था जहाँ पे कि सब खुश थे, ठीक है ना, सारे लोग थे. While making the rounds of his capital, Harishchandra found a woman in deep grief. हरिश्चंद्र चल रहे तो देखा एक औरत जो थी बहुत दुखी है. He got off his horse, stood before and asked, "What makes you so unhappy? तुम इतनी दुखी क्यों?" My name is Siddhi, she said. There is one Vishwamitra who is doing deep and severe meditation to conquer me. मेरा नाम सिद्धि है और एक विश्वामित्र नाम का आदमी जो है बहुत भयंकर तप कर रहा है मुझे जीतने के लिए. That's why I'm unhappy. इसीलिए मैं दुखी हूँ. Siddhi means attainment of extraordinary powers and explained the storyteller. So when one has attained the siddhis, one can walk on water, float in air, travel through various planes, transmute, transmigrate, and so forth. Here is the name is symbolic of the goddess presiding over those powers whom Vishwamitra was trying to conquer through his austere meditations. Vishwamitra meditations कर रहे थे, तो उनका ये था कि भाई इसको conquer. Don't ask me why Harishchandra took it literally and not symbolically. I am only a storyteller and I narrate as I've heard it, that's all. Harishchandra was completely shaken by this woman's grief. इस औरत की उसे grief से completely shake off हो गया. He continued and told her grandly, I'll help you, do not grieve anymore. He undertook a search for the meditating sage and found him off in a far-off cave without food or respite, concentrating on the powers he wished to attain. एक गहरे तप में एक संत मिला. Sage. It was almost impossible to get him out of this abstract state, but the king took the risk and made enough noise to rouse Vishwamitra. राजा ने रिस्क लिया और विश्वामित्र को उठाया. Whenever a man like this is awakened from contemplation, no human being should come within the range of his immediate vision. ऐसे तप के बाद जब आंखें खुलती हैं तो किसी भी को भी बाहर नहीं होना चाहिए, सामने नहीं. He must take care to keep aside and emerge gradually into his notice. Harishchandra stood away until the thunderous challenge rang forth. Who is it that he has chosen to disturb me now? किसने मेरा तप भंग किया है? Harishchandra came. हाँ बोलो. Harishchandra came before him humbly, offered his salutation, said, "Burn me up, O sage, but your torment of the woman Siddhi must stop." मुझे जला दीजिए, पर सिद्धि को तंग करना बंद करिए. No person should create unhappiness for any other. किसी और आदमी को, किसी दूसरी को दुखी रखने का कोई अधिकार नहीं.
ऐसा कोई
तप न करो. This suited so Vishwamitra, who was, with all the pugnacity in him, wished to have a specific cause for declaring war on Harishchandra. अब हरिश्चंद्र विश्वामित्र को एक रास्ता मिल गया कि भाई हरिश्चंद्र से लड़ाई की जाए. फिर क्या किया जाए? Burn you up, thought the sage. Not so fast, he thought, and said aloud, I am happy that you care so much for the welfare of your subjects. मुझे बड़ी खुशी है कि तुम्हें अपने लोगों का ख्याल.
ऐसा मत करो कि किसी और का लॉस
Correct.
या परेशान.
All right, go in peace, he added. Perhaps if you can. हो सकता है तुम कर सको. The king saluted him and returned to his capital, pleased with the success of his mission. But hardly had he set foot within the gates of the city when messengers came hurrying to him and cried, Your Majesty, we have been searching for you. A strange beast has invaded the city and is wrecking everything in its way. एक जानवर शहर में आ गया और हर चीज को तोड़ रहा. अयोध्या नगरी में. Beast, beast, what sort of a beast is it? Asked the king. हैवान, कैसा हैवान? Looks like a boar with tusks sharp as a sword and runs and jumps and moves like lightning. ये टस्क कैसे होते हैं जैसे भयंकर हो और तेजी से चलता है. It is reckless and fast and destroys everything, whether human beings, trees or cattle, gardens or orchards, and fields have been devastated. Not a single stalk of corn stands anywhere. The king was disposed to treat their speech as an exaggeration, but when he went round and saw the devastation, he was appalled. The unseen menace was here and there and everywhere, and people came running in with fresh reports. Children were shut in, women were afraid to come out to the river for water. Men with sturdy limbs carried heavy weapons such as axes and sticks and rods and moved about casting cautious glancing over their shoulders. The king did not like the atmosphere. Raja ko pitana. Now that summon all our hunters and let them be ready with their weapons. Harishchandra hurried back to the palace, took leave of the queen, refreshed himself, and was ready in a moment with his armor, lance, sword, and bow, and every kind of equipment for cutting, stabbing, piercing, and destroying his unseen enemy. After half a day's search, he detected the beast emerge from under a bridge at the northern limits of the city. Ayodhya के northern limit में घूम रहा. It was a boar. The king sent his fastest arrow and it rebounded. राजा ने उस बोर पे एरो मारा और वो वापस आ गया. He threw a javelin and it glanced off. The boar started a game of hide and seek, with all the army of huntsmen in pursuit, on foot and on horseback and in various ways. It wove its way in and out of the city, blindly crushing and damaging everything in its path. For all its might, it was elusive and extremely cunning. It was not hurt in the least by the chase, and as a variety of missiles aimed at it fell away from it, it seemed to possess a charmed life. Only its pursuers were exhausted. One by one and in groups they fell back. And finally the king found himself alone. Raja अकेला उसके साथ, charging along separated from his companions. He became obsessed with the dark march moving ahead of him through thicket, upland and valley, and it led him on and finally vanished from its view. He sat on a boulder under a blazing sun, footsore and thirsty, fatigued beyond words, having lost even his mount, as the beast's movements had compelled it to follow it on the foot. He felt defeated now. He craved for a little shade and a drink of water. Time to bother about other things later. He did not even know about his bearings, although he had been familiar with the intricate passages and pathways in the forest and hills around. He had forgotten his quarry in the exhaustion of the chase. He sat and mopped his brow with the corner of his scarf, sighing and panting. Now appeared before him a venerable old man, radiant and saintly, at the sight of whom the king made an instinctive obeisance. Without waiting for the king to speak, the venerable man said, O king, I understand how thirsty you are. Go up and turn to your left, where you will find a deep grove. Then he gave him directions for reaching a pool of water tucked away in the rocks. The king reached the pool and, impressed with the beauty of the place, the water was so transparent that he could see white pebbles on its bed. He quenched his thirst, and the venerable man also appeased his hunger by setting before him a basket full of fruit. He sat on a stone watching the king refresh himself and remarked, It proves that one who has faith can never get lost. If you have to follow a wild boar, you do it best by changing yourself into a wild boar for a time being. Said the saintly man and expanded the theme into subtle philosophical disquisitions. There, sitting on the cool slab of stone, watching the saintly man with his thirst and hunger quenched, the king was overwhelmed by the profound sense of gratitude and veneration, said, when I despaired after the chase, you appeared as if sent by the god, and you have revived me in this wilderness and given me food for my body and my soul. I do not know, but if you know who I am, it is immaterial, said the saint. कोई बात नहीं. Whatever it may be, please give me a chance to show my gratitude to you. You know? For not only you have done what you have done, but for what you are and for deigning to appear before me. This was the chance that the saint had been waiting for. He was none other than Vishwamitra. It was a culmination of series of attempts that this sage had been making to ensnare the king. First he set Siddhi, next he sent the wild boar, his own creation. Now he appeared in the splendor of his sage-like personality. He was a man of tremendous attainments and the powers and could create anything anywhere. Harishchand's troubles began. हरिश्चंद्र की दिक्कतें शुरू हुआ विश्वामित्र के झांसे में फंस चुके हैं. The sage said, "O king, I know who you are. I appreciate your effort to show me your gratitude. What can I ask of you?" "Anything," said the guileless king. "All right. I will let you know what I know, but first prepare yourself properly to offer the gift. Bathe in that tank and come back after your evening prayers." "As your command," said the king, completely under the spell of his grand personality. He got into the tank, took a holy bath, said his prayers, and stood beside the sage as he sat on a stone with his eyes shut in a meditation. Harishchandra said, "Oh master, I am ready to do your bidding. What can I give you?" "Your kingdom with the entire contents of your treasury, all the ornaments and dress on you, and all the ornaments and dress on wife and son. You may keep your wife and son with you, but must leave the capital at once." "I will," said the king. Now when he returned to the capital, it was only to wind up his affairs as a king. He soon divested himself of every possession. His wife Chandramati followed suit, and his son was stripped of his earrings. Vishwamitra loomed over them, watching the minutest treasure was not carried off. The populace was in grief and followed their king through the streets. Vishwamitra now said, in addition to his other land, "Do you know, Harishchandra, that all you have given away is worth nothing unless it is properly presented? A gift must be accompanied with dakshina to make it complete." इसका क्या मतलब है?
दक्षिण होते हैं ना, ऊपर से 100 रुपए रखते हैं, जैसे सब कुछ देते हैं ना, अब उनके पास सारी राजपाट सब दे दिया, 100 रुपए तो थे ही नहीं.
Vishwamitra now said "Yes, that's true," said the king, "but since I possess nothing at the moment, please give me time to earn the amount to give it to you, whatever it may be." "Yes, I give you 30 days to give good that amount." The wailing populace followed their king to the gates of the city and returned. Harishchandra with his wife and his son set his course in the direction of Kashi Banaras. काशी की तरफ वो निकल गए. A neutral city owned by Go Ishwar himself, where he could live in the charity houses that abounded all along the river course, and on alms distributed at the temple gate. Needless to add, his wife and son shared his trials without a murmur. 29 days passed without even income. मतलब काशी चले गए. As they sat on the riverside gazing on the brilliant stream, Vishwamitra appeared again, reminding, "Tomorrow will be the last day I could give you for the payment of your dakshina. How do you propose to manage it?" And mentioned after due calculation a figure that stunned the king. but it was really a tenth of what the king had for years collected as revenue in his kingdom. Close on the heels of Vishwamitra appeared a Brahmin saying, I am on the lookout for a good woman who can do my household work and keep my house clean. I can buy this woman if she is available. Chandramati said, Oh, my husband, sell me for what I am worth. It will help you pay off your debt. Now the son added his little voice, Please take me too, for I am what I am worth. Let me to some extent help my father. Harishchandra steeled himself to sell his wife and son and thus collected 11 crores, over 100 million gold pieces, and handed it to the creditor who waited beside him with a ruthless determination. After receiving the 11 crores, Ngoda Seth said, There is still balance less. Will you be able to pay it before sunset tomorrow? If you are unable to fulfill your promise, you may say so. Harishchandra said, If it is due, it must be paid. There can be no question of offering excuses. At this moment, there appeared a fierce person of the Chandal caste who said, I am the chief of the Chandalas, and all the cremation grounds are under my charge, and all the butcheries, and it is my men who sweep the streets and drains and remove corpses and burn them at the river's edge. I want a man to do my bidding. If you agree to serve me, I will pay you. He offered a sum which was just enough to complete the payment due to Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra accepted the money and left. देवों के पास कभी मत जाओ. The gods in the heaven who were watching the drama were so pleased that the flowers were showered on Harishchandra, and invisible voices blessed him for his devotion to truth. The Chandal master assigned Harishchandra various tasks in the cremation ground. Chandramati went away, her only consolation being that her son was left with her. The Brahmin who brought her, a rich man with numerous dependents and a large houseboat, got his money's worth in service. Chandramati's tasks were varied and unspecified. She had to get up at 4 in the morning, clean and scrub the floor, polish the vessels, attend the cattle in the yard, water the garden, light the fire for the day, and get hot water for everyone's bath, and wash their clothes at the well. She took care of numerous children in the household, and if one of them cried or grumbled, she was taken to task immediately. She was the last to dine and was seated in the passage, served her food on a dry leaf. Her son was allotted a number of duties, and she could find the time to have a word with him only late at night as they lay on their mats, which they allowed to spread out in the servants' quarters next to the cattle shed. Sometimes she was severely quoted for some shortcoming in her service. Sometimes they left her alone for days, and sometimes they threw at her a word of encouragement. The son was often out of sight, and which was mostly used as an errand boy. One afternoon, the boy was sent to the forest to gather banyan twigs for the sacrificial fire, and he had not come home by the evening. A couple of shepherd boys came to say, We were in the forest grazing a cattle and saw a boy dead under a banyan tree, bitten by a cobra. His body was blue. Perhaps it was your son, sorry. Chandramati burst into a loud wail involuntarily and brought to her side immediately a master who said hysterically, What is this lamentation at this hour? Don't you know that it is Friday, and that especially at this hour of dusk there should be no inauspicious sound? It will bring ruin on my family if you persist thus. Stop it, woman. I was wrong in accepting a woman with such inauspicious horoscope in the house. When he understood the cause of her lamentation, he merely said, It is a pity, but one should be careful while walking in the forest. That boy must have been careless. She asked for permission to go with the cowherds and see if the dead boy was her son. The man said, Yes, after you finish your work for the day. Nothing is to be gained by going there now. What can you do? Tomorrow we'll have sacred rites to perform and we can't put it off. Finish all your work and then go. But be sure to be back at work at 5 in the morning. She accepted this condition also as part of her trial, and performed her artist tasks till midnight, and then was guided by the cattle grazers to the forest where her son's body lay. Attracted by the lamentations proceeding from within the forest, a group of night patrolmen followed the sound and came to where Chandramati was crying over her son's body. They approached her and asked, "Who are you, woman? Why are you here at this hour? What is the explanation for bringing a dead body here?" She did not hear the words and did not vouchsafe them as an answer. She merely looked up and continued her lamentations. They whispered amongst themselves, "Must be a supernatural creature who has kidnapped some poor child and sucked its blood. Must be pretending in grief to put us off." They approached her again and got no answer. No normal human being would dare to be here at this hour. Must be a witch. One of them stood at a distance and prodded her with the sharp point of his lance. She did not even wince. She had become oblivious to her own physical pain. This only confirmed the suspicion that she was supernatural. They suddenly fell on her, bound her with ropes, took her before the chief, who happened to be the Chandal, Harishchand's master. He heard the complaint of the patrolman, questioned her, got no satisfactory answer as to the dead body that she was hugging, and declared, "There's a bad sort, I know. We must make an example of her. We don't want creatures like this in the holy city." "Call that man," Harishchandra was stern and told. "Take this woman to the cremation ground and cut off her head." Harishchandra said, "Killing a woman or ask me to do anything? I will conduct a war and annihilate your enemies, if you have any. I will do anything but not harm a woman." "Obey my order," said the Chandal. "I have not brought you at an exorbitant price in order to hear your argument about things. Take her away, I say."
क्या करोगे?
जाओ उस औरत को ले जा करके और उसका सर काट दो.
Cut her hair.
Cut her head.
अच्छा.
"I beg of you, spare me this ordeal," pleaded Harishchandra. The Chandal said, "I accepted you only on your undertaking to obey me implicitly. You remember? Obedience is the first condition of our contract. Do you realize it? Obey my order. Surely we don't want more children in the city to be devoured by this witch." "Yes," replied Harishchandra gloomily, "I obey you." He ordered the woman to be taken to the cremation ground where she might be beheaded and cremated simultaneously. She was asked to carry her burden along with her, the dead body of her child. Harishchandra went through his duty blindly, shutting his eyes literally to the person before him, benumbing his mind to everything around him with a deliberate effort. To the appointed spot he went with his sword sharpened. Chandramanti leant before him. It was a dark hour and he could not see clearly. He wept at heart and prayed to the heavens to forgive him, and at once corrected himself. "Forgive? Why should I be forgiven?" The woman pleaded now, "This is my own child. Let me cremate his body before I die. Give me time. Help me with this task." "Yes, you may," Harishchandra said. "But my master collects a task for every body that is burnt in this ground. You will have to pay it before proceeding further." The woman said, "Alas, I possess neither money nor any valuables. But I see gold chain around your neck. Give it that as a tax." Chandramati looked up and scrutinized him in the flickering torchlight. For she had been given a boon at birth that the sacred gold thali around her neck would not be visible to anyone except her husband. When they recognized each other, they decided to burn themselves together on the same pyre built for the child. But there was no meaning in existence anymore. Hardly had they set foot in the fire when the gods in heaven realized that their limits had been reached in the trial of the hardy soul. Flowers rained from the heavens, and the fires were put out with the rain of nectar, and voices in the heavens said, "Your trials have ended, may victory be yours." Vishwamitra, the great tormentor, appeared on the scene. "Harishchandra, you have proved me wrong every time. No other creature could have borne the trials as you have. All your tormentors, the Chandal, the Brahmin, the cobra that bit your son, the wild boar and Siddhi, all have been my creations. And only acted my part or spoke my words, all intent on making you break your promise at least once. You have borne much from me, now I give you back your son." The son rose to his feet from his sleep. "Go back to your kingdom and rule it as the great king that you are," said the sage. "I accept defeat gladly, and I will begin my spiritual training and acquisition of merit all over again from nothing, because I am surrendering all the merit and powers from my spiritual life to you with all my heart." और ये कहानी खत्म.